This video is about macro and micro evolution. So evolution is the change in the characteristics of a species over several generations and relies on the process of natural selection. The theory of evolution is based on the idea that all species are related and gradually change over time. Evolution relies on there being genetic variation in a population which affects the physical characteristics phenotype of an organism. Some of these characteristics may give the individual an advantage over other individuals, but they can then pass on to their offspring. Once again, evolution is the change in the characteristics of a species over several generations and relies on the process of natural selection. The theory of evolution is based on the idea that all species are related and gradually change over time. Evolution relies on there being genetic variation in a population which affects the physical characteristics or phenotype of an organism. Some of the characteristics may give the individual an advantage over either other individuals, which they can then pass on to their offspring. Then formerly held that accumulation and small mutations leads to major evolution. However, Goldsmith in 1940 disagreed with the view and proposed that evolutionary changes occur at two levels, namely microevolution and macroevolution. Simpson in 1953 recognized a third level of organization called megaevolution. Then microevolution. Microevolution is the change in the allele frequency due to one of the following processes: natural selection, mutation, genetic drift, gene flow, or migration, non-random mating. The evolutionary changes are below the level of species. Changes involve minor chromosomal variations and gene frequencies from one generation to the next in local population and their impacts on phenotype of individual organisms. The natural selection. Success in reproduction based on heritable changes in selected alleles being passed to relatively more offspring. Darwin inheritance cause adaptation of population. Modes of natural selection: directional selection, disruptive selection, and stabilizing selection. Directional selection. Directional selection occurs when conditions favor individuals exhibiting one extreme of a phenotypic range. That is directional selection. Favors individuals at one end of the phenotypic range. Commonly occurs when the population's environment changes or when members of a population migrate to a new and different habitat. Climate getting colder, neck of a giraffe, antibiotic resistance of bacteria, moth color, melanin, camouflage, mimicry, etc. Then directional selection, population after selection, original population. Peppered moths found in England were originally light colored and hid on light colored trees. Then comes the industrial revolution covering England with soot. So the darker colored moths were selected for, since now they blended in with the soot covered trees. Then directional selection, mimicry, mimic environment. Disruptive selection. Disruptive selection, also called the diversifying selection, describes changes in population genetics in which extreme values for a trait are favored over intermediate values. Factors: extreme over intermediate phenotypes. So occurs when environmental changes favor an extreme phenotype. Darwin finches. Population after selection, original population, selection against the mean. So number of individuals in the population, number of individuals in the population. So color change. Stabilizing selection. Stabilizing selection is a type of natural selection in which the population mean stabilizes on a particular non-extreme trait value. Favors intermediate over extreme phenotypes, reduces variation and maintains the current average. Example: human birth weight, human height, bird clutch size, etc. Stabilizing selection. So robins tend to lay 4 eggs each season. When they lay more eggs, there may be too many offsprings for the parent to provide food for all of them. When they lay fewer eggs, there may not be healthy offspring that hatch. Stabilizing selection is when a population's genetic diversity is greatly decreased. An example of this is the human baby, because most are born at an average weight, because if they are born too heavy or too light, they are more likely to die. Stabilizing selection. Types of natural selection: directional selection, disruptive selection, and stabilizing selection. Directional selection, a process of natural selection in which a single phenotype at one extreme of the phenotypic range is favored. The population's trait distribution shifts towards an extreme. Then disruptive selection, a process of natural selection that favors individuals at both extremes of a phenotypic range. Can cause such differences among a species that the variation leads to new speciation. And stabilizing selection, a process of natural selection that tends to favor genotypic combinations that produce an intermediate phenotype. It reduces phenotypic variation. Natural selection tends to remove the more severe phenotype, maintain status quo. Directional selection, only one extreme is favored. Then next, disruptive selection, both are favored, but in stabilizing selection only the middle one is favored. Middle in the sense just with medium characters, not extremes. Then mutation, these are the three: directional selection, disruptive selection, and stabilizing selection.